I wanted to do a series of paintings, pictures, prints or sculptures based on my local surroundings. So I went out and I did lots of drawings, and then I suddenly realised that actually they were more than buildings. They were buildings populated by people. I mean, in this instance, it's a food bank, and that's the way down to Tesco's, which I always thought was slightly anomalous, that this is a food bank and Tesco's is around the corner. So I did a series of them, probably 75 of these different sizes. I did that one, and I went and did that one, which is of the local sweet shop. In terms of painting style, it's quite loose, very much based on Fauvism or abstract expressionism at the very least. So I might get lost for 2 or 3 weeks in a series of paintings, and they do take a time, but you see, I don't view anything as finished. So when I look at that one, I think, well, there are bits I might want to add to it, and one has to, I think, gently understand with what I do, everything has a predecessor for me. So that one has, its own history way back when I did some etchings of the local shops. And those etchings, I think, have fed into this. Oh yeah, totally different. No colour, black and white, have to be done backwards, because when you print, you have to do things in reverse so that it comes out the right way. Yeah, so series of things are important. But you see, I never regard anything as finished. I mean, you look at that and you say, well, I can see why you don't regard it as finished. Because I live in this environment, I'm able to go back and I'm able to look. So I see something, like this lamppost, which is a certain shape, and there's a stop sign over here. And those little details come out for me over a period of time. So that might be started, say, on a Wednesday, but 2 Tuesdays further on, I'm going back and I'm seeing something else. I was born in 1954. I should have been born in the Isle of Man, but I was born in Liverpool because all my family are from the Isle of Man. My father was in the army. We lived on army camps, which were absolutely fantastic for a young person. Luckily, anyone who showed prowess in anything, be it sport or art, the equipment suddenly appeared. So I was good at drawing, and I ended up with reams of paper, courtesy of the Nuffield Trust. So, I was very good at making models out of plasticine. A kilo of plasticine would come to the door, And that's a huge plus when you're a little person, because what you want to do is be able to do, not to be able to worry about the mechanics of where the clay came from or where the pencils came from. From there, I went to school, obviously had a certain bit of knowledge about art at school, and then went on to art college, which totally cemented it for me. I was lucky, I got in with a couple of tutors who almost gave me a pass to go anywhere. So I could go down to the clay department and do stuff in clay. I could go up to the fashion and textiles people to see what they were doing. So there was nothing I specialised in. For sure, they taught me printing and painting and, to be fair, clay work. But I was allowed to go anywhere and do it. When I left art college, I'd already made the decision quite early on that I wanted to teach. So I went to art college. Oh, I loved it, but I went to art college and I knew I was going on to teach. And I loved doing things with the young people who were doing their own art. So it was I never felt the time was being taken away from me. I actually felt this is the way it is at the moment, and that's what we're going to do. Then obviously when one retires, you get the time, but I don't feel I'm getting the time back. I'm just reusing similar bits of time. And all the things I've done with all those young people, like I said, it's been a two-way street. It's not been just me giving. They've given things to me, you know, thoughts, laughter, tears even, you know. Yeah, no, that's important. That's important. I smile when I look at that, because that one takes me back to when I did it, and that's quite normal for creative people to know when they did something, know when they wrote a piece of music, know when they made a film, because they're almost getting echoes from certain things. And for me, when I look at that, I think, yeah, that takes me back to when I had a big studio, i.e. the art room that I taught in, and I had this half-hour period in which I had time to do a quick painting. So I did, you know, a quick self-portrait. To me, it's about depicting it in different ways when I do self-portraits. In this particular instance, this one was done outside, and the light suddenly caught me, and I thought, no, I've got to do a drawing. I've got to do a drawing of myself with the light hitting the top of my hat and just the side of my face and just here. So I did this very quick drawing, and then decided actually that wasn't enough. So I went and got my print making stuff, my etching stuff, and did a very rough, quick piece of etching on the actual plate. And one has to remember, this is part of a huge long process once I've done the scratching and the rubbing, because that has to be inked and it has to be printed. Whereas this one, no, that's there. That's, you know, that 20 minutes, 30 minutes, it's there, it's done. This one is part of an actual process. And then I get ones like that, you know. I mean, this portrait, it's almost unrecognisable of me, but there are characteristics of me, that maybe the way I tilt my head, and it's very, you know, roughly done, but I love doing them and looking at myself in different ways. You get ones like that. That's a very almost accurate, and unusually enough I'm looking straight at myself, studying it, and I've got glasses on. Maybe I was celebrating getting a new pair of glasses. Do they look like me? Doesn't matter, because I've had the joy of making it, doing it, then taking it on into print, and that for me is incredibly important. Yeah. My artistic day begins, because actually I sometimes think it begins the day before, when I'm reflecting on what I've done that day. But I hasten to add, in between this chair and another chair in the studio, something will change, something will grab my eye, a plant, a flower, the way something's lying. Once I've decided, I'll spend upwards of 2 or 3 hours doing something, very safe in the knowledge that I don't have to finish it, or I can finish it. It's totally dependent on what I'm doing. So if I'm carving a piece of stone, that could go over 3 or 4 or 5 days, but not constant, because I'll get interrupted, or interrupt myself by wanting to do a drawing or needing to do a painting. And it's very important to me that I have that freedom to do that level of creation, because I don't want to get stuck by just doing one thing all the time, all day. But I do it every single day, and it would be rare, very rare, that I wouldn't be doing it every single day. And it could be upwards of 5 or 6 hours. Yeah. So this particular piece is actually an example of what happens. So I head towards the garden, see something in the garden which interests me, in this case this particular plant, and I think, right, what is it you want to do with that? So I decided that I would do it with charcoal. But sometimes that's not enough just to say in charcoal. There's got to be another reason, something underneath it. So people will recall Hokusai's wave that moves here, and it's a fishing boat here. And I loved the idea that this became wave-like. And the charcoal helps, I think, because it stops one colour dominating. And then I'd be doing, you know, a number of different drawings based on, that one is most particularly Hokusai's waves, but it's still got the plant in it. And in almost all the cases, I'm trying out different ways. I'm trying to understand for myself what it is I like about it, yet still remaining true to the idea of the Hokusai wave. I don't want to do flowers that are in full bloom, because when they're in full bloom, they belong to an art history state of, they become almost like a perfect portrait, and as if there's no life before and life afterwards. I like the idea that they're wilting slightly. They've lived through numerous storms. The rain's got them. The sun has actually bleached them. I don't want them to become portraits of flowers. I want them to have, you know, another life, another way of being almost. The materials I use are incredibly important for me. I sometimes think they're more important than the image I end up with. In the main, 90% of the materials I use come from the local scrap store, Milton Keynes scrap store. And for me, that's of immense benefit to go in and see this cornucopia of colours, little bits and pieces, which I don't have to be precious about, because nothing is costing me £20 before I start. It's just costing me the time that I prepare the surfaces, because for each one of these paintings and drawings and prints that I actually do, there's a bit that happens before where I'll spend absolutely hours just making surface after surface after surface, which might not be used in the next year, but then suddenly I'll be using, because I don't want to stop once I've actually started. So that the cheapness of the material does actually come in, but for archival purposes, no, I think they'll deteriorate quite quickly. Yeah, quite quickly. This is the space prior to when I go out into the studio, which is down the path. But this particular space, again, is a space that has multi-purpose. I can go and I can pick up materials from over there, and I can do drawings here, I can do a painting here, I can put the still life here. And I quite often think through a lot of what I'm actually doing in this particular space, because it's beautifully calming, it's near the garden, and it's quite reflective for me. All these postcards and portraits of myself, some of them that surround me, they're as important as my books, because, you know, they're things that I want to highlight, want to think about. The sculptures, it's of a mother and a child, and a lot of the sculptural work I do is of mothers and child, or somebody nurturing somebody, or, you know, as this one is over here. I'll just bring it over to you, of what looks like a big monkey, but the monkey's looking after the little person down here, and I love that feel. And sometimes I often feel, is it about making these objects, or is it about having the freedom just to do, without hurting anyone else, the thing that you love doing? This one was one of the first ones I ever made out of alabaster. Again, very hard for maybe other people to decipher, but it's two people just gently holding each other. And that was one of the first things, I think it actually was the first thing I did in alabaster. And to be able to hold that in my hand, and to always have that near me, is incredibly important, which is why that they're arranged across here. You know, it's like an encyclopedia of little bits that I've done that I might develop, and that to me is good. I frame very few, I mount very few, but there are possibly 3 or 4 which I've got. One's a watercolour, and I sat on the side of the lake again, remembering what it felt like with the wind and the trees, and I did these yachts in the distance, and it's so simplistic and so understated and unfussy, and it's the sort of thing somebody else might just walk straight by, but for me that's not possibly, it definitely is the best painting I've ever done, and that's why I framed it. And the other 2, one of them is here, it's my wife and Jenny, the firstborn child. It doesn't look anything like them, but it's the clothing. I remember the clothing that Rosie was wearing when she did this, and that's why that one's framed. So it doesn't have to be great and finished, and it's just something that I actually got from it. And there's my 2 grandchildren who she had attached to it. That's good. This is the studio where I can sculpt, I can paint, and I don't have to tidy up. All my materials that I use is here. I don't have to pre-order it, go back into the house. So there's a set here. As much as I like my garden, I don't have to go on a journey to find a particular thing, because it's here. And that, to me, it's not just about time saving, it's having those things around you. Even the papers here, the paper, you know, is slightly underneath something else. I don't have to go anywhere else to get it. This is the space where I actually make the sculptures. In here, these all represent, you know, some of them represent figures, but they all represent, again, different ways of testing ideas out, doing it in lead, doing it in metal, doing a piece in alabaster. The plasticine with the head, which, I mean, this head has been ongoing now for upwards of 2 years, And will it ever be finished? I'm not overly sure that it will be an important piece, because I add to it when I feel I need to add to it. But I've got that freedom. I don't have to lock it away and get it out especially. It exists, I can get on, I can move it about if I want to move it about. And if it doesn't work, there's nobody there, not that I've ever had that, but there's nobody there to criticise me, to say, oh, that should be done in that particular way, because it's me that has the choice to come back and remove it and push it and shove it around. The bigger pieces I break down and I put in containers for safekeeping. 20 odd of these blue containers, all full of artwork, ready to actually be reassembled or to be looked at again. And when I, gently look in this one, I mean, to me, that's a cornucopia of pieces I've made and pieces that maybe not as successful, but they're in here, they're stored, they're safe. And then here we have got the stone, piece after piece after piece that I can come out if I want and select and start to carve and start to use, never having to worry about, have I got that particular piece? And then this particular space here is where I would put a very big sculpture, so I can do it here, so I can get a big piece. The art that I do is certainly not for other people. When other people celebrate it with me or say they like it, that's lovely. That's absolutely fine. But it's totally and utterly for myself. I have nobody who commissions me, because I think that could possibly, in my case, be restrictive. I'd have to think about framing it. I'd have to think about the weight of the stone. It's very much for me. Though that sounds selfish, but I'm not. It's not selfish, because it's not hurting anybody. It's keeping me nice and calm and relaxed within what I do and what I want to do, because it hurts nobody to do these things, to have these objects around me.